Since the early days of Arknights, casters have been a polarizing class. Most struggle to receive the recognition due to the power offered by Eyjafjalla and especially Ifrit. There are some that manage to establish themselves like Click or Leonhard, but those are more of an exception. Despite that, Hypergriff keeps introducing new archetypes, and so was the case during Beyond here with Iris. We recently got the 4-star variant of this new archetype, Indigo, which I will focus on in this video. The tests were conducted using Indigo at E2, level 40 with trust below 100, skills at level 7 and potential 6. The reduced attack bonus from the trust will not affect the conclusions. Her statistics are worth looking at first as they are unusual, particularly the attack power sitting at over 1100. This number is very high, but it comes at the cost of her attack interval being 3 seconds. To put it into perspective, the attack interval of a typical single target caster is 1.6 seconds, and for an AoE caster it sits at 2.9 seconds. So with that, Indigo sits just above an AoE caster. On its own, such a high attack interval might not seem justifiable, given the attack power increase over other casters. That's where her trait comes into play. It allows her to store up to 3 charges of her full attack power that she releases as soon as an enemy enters her range. Her range is also unusual, as she has one similar to an AoE caster, but all of it is pushed one tile forward, making it one tile bigger. The talent gives her 18 to 20% chance, depending on the potential, to bind the target for 4 seconds. However, she won't target bound enemies. Skill 1 reduces her attack interval by 80% and makes her attacks deal damage equal to 40% of her full attack power at skill level 7 or 50% at mastery 3. The skill duration is always 4 seconds and the SP cost goes from 19 at skill level 7 down to 15 at mastery 3. Additionally, it reduces her attack range to a single line. Generally, this skill would be good for bursting down a bunch of weaker enemies, but it can get undermined by the activation of her talent, which could prevent her from finishing off the target. Combined with reduced range, the limitations become very clear. On the top of that, while the skill has low SP cost, it only lasts 4 seconds, so the rotations are not that good. There is also not enough time for her to accumulate the charges in the scenario where the enemy does get bound. Skill 2 reduces her attack interval to 65%, increases the talent activation chance by 2.5 times, and makes her deal damage equal to 15% of her attack power to bound targets at skill level 7. Those values change to 60% of the attack interval, 3 times the talent activation chance, and 20% of her attack power at mastery 3. The skill duration is always 20 seconds, and the SP cost goes down from 44 to 40 between level 7 and mastery 3. The skill offers strong crowd control, while also giving Indigo minor multi-target capabilities. It is easily the preferred skill to use. In fact, I wouldn't recommend using skill 1 at all, as it doesn't work well with Indigo's talent. She has a good synergy with other binding operators like Kobe and Magellan with skill 1, or Ethan when she is using skill 2, as she attacks more enemies as they get bound. Her attack power also scales very well with buffers thanks to her trait, but you have to make sure that her buffed attacks hit the right target. You won't see her in the trust farms, as her kit is not suitable for that. For boss killing, she will have to be paired with a debuffer, as the elite enemies typically have high resistance, which removes a big part of her damage output. There are some exceptions however. She does a decent job against the Sarkaz Centurion in chapter 3. She can also be used against Madrog and the Golems in TW stages. Aside from that, she works well in chapter 8. When combined with Ethan or Magellan, she shines in R85. She also does well against the targeteers, though in this case she needs the masteries. As for her CC capabilities, she is a solid addition to the stall-focused strategies, and will definitely do well for the minimum risk 18 and risk 8 runs for the main and daily maps, while also being useful for the runs that push for slightly higher risks. Is she worth raising? It's complicated. Despite her at first glance high damage output, this won't be the reason to use her, as the way she achieves that high output is not practical in the vast majority of the cases. It's really her second skill that gives her a solid niche. But as always, you also have other operators to consider, like Iris, who is Indigo's 5-star counterpart. Her skill 1 is a straight up upgrade lasting 1 second longer, and not being at odds with Iris' talent, plus generally offering higher damage output. Skill 2 lets her inflict slumber on 2 targets for 7 seconds, meaning very consistent and strong crowd control and very good synergy with Blemishine. Granted, as a 5-star Iris is a much bigger commitment in terms of material cost. Then there are also the other types of casters. Click is another one to consider. She has much lower attack power values, but much faster attack speed, amplified by her talent, and a floating unit that makes her essentially dual hit, thus making her damage output way more consistent. Additionally, her second skill increases her range, attack power, and gives her and the floating unit a chance to stun. The floating unit also locks on the target and can go outside of Click's range. While the enemies are more likely to be immune to stun than bind, this mostly applies to the elite enemies. We also have Podengo, who is a 4-star supporter that slows enemies with normal attacks and offers AoE slow with her second skill. Once again we are looking at different crowd control tool, but it has its own advantages. There are many higher rarity supporters that could also be mentioned here, but at that point we are comparing very different types of operators with vastly differing costs of raising. So Indigo faces a steep competition in crowd control space, but she offers enough value to hold her own, and ultimately the choice boils down to your own preferences. If you promote Indigo to E2, I would strongly recommend mastering the second skill all the way to improve her binding chance. Thanks to her being a 4-star, the cost of masters is really low, and you will want to maximize her crowd control capabilities. Her potential scaling is above average given that the pretty high attack power boost of plus 36 at potential 4 gets multiplied by the charges. The extra 2% binding chance from her 5th potential is not that significant on its own, but becomes noticeably bigger with the second skill activated. I wouldn't recommend just raising her to E1 level 60 and leaving her there, as the bind chance gains from E2 and masteries are significant. Her base talents are pretty good, especially for early game. First talent makes her increase the morale recovery speed of another operator in the dormitory by 0.55. That value increases to 1 if that operator is blue poison, which is the fastest single operator morale recovery boost available. Her second talent gives her 15% boost to the drone acquisition in the power plant. What makes this duo good is that you can utilize both without an issue, unlike in some other cases where you have to choose one. That's all. Next I will cover Asbestos. Thank you for watching, I hope you found this video useful, and if you did, like and subscribe, and if you didn't, dislike and tell me why. Follow me on Twitch where I stream Arknights. Hope to see you there. See you next time.